to 17, 20 some odd
There you go.
steps every day.
Right on. Yeah, just get around everywhere. Yeah, that's
We
right.
did a wellness challenge in the mayor's office. We had these 4 different days. We had milestones to hit, and one of them was the personal best day.
Oh,
And,
yeah.
One day, I don't know what I was doing. I was doing like yard work and coaching soccer, and I had something else going on. And before I knew it, I had amassed like 24,000.
Yeah.
And so that was my record up to then. I'm like, wow, I'll never ever know if I'll beat that. And then our next 3rd challenge we had to do, the team challenge, was that person beat your personal best.
That's right. It's like, oh, geez.
I'm like, are you kidding me?
Yeah.
It's like, it was like the most inconvenient day to do it.
Yeah.
So I went home and I think I chopped wood.
Yeah.
I
Chased the dog.
I went running.
Yeah.
I did run a mountain bike ride. I went and I got like 28,000 steps in. I was out. I was tired.
We had 21 teams in the borough that were in this challenge, and the mayor's office, we took 5th out of 21, which I thought was really good.
The swimmers,
So.
the lifeguards,
Yeah.
they're in the pool all the time.
Yeah.
It's killing
Yes.
us. Can't even get close to them.
That's okay.
That's okay. They're
We had
young.
one other department we wanted to beat, and we did.
We did.
Yes, we did. So
Yeah, it was good.
trash talking, you know. It's like, all right, we're gonna raise the bar here. So yeah.
Okay, everybody, we're about 30 seconds out. I'm going to get started. Can you turn up the projector? So Dan, you got until 2 o'clock, so you can use all that time if you want. Okay? If I see you kind of like not, there should be no questions coming in. There should be no questions. And if I see you looking like you're going to go over, I'll go stand on that corner, by that doorway on that frame, and I'll just stand there and look at you. That should clue that you're within 5 minutes.
Okay. I thought there was wanted time for Q&A.
Is there?
At least that's what Lng suggested, but
I don't see you. Maybe ask Lillian.
I had a question for you.
Yeah.
Why aren't you running for mayor?
What's that?
Why aren't you running?
No,
for
I'm
mayor?
good. I like orchestrating
Think
things
about it.
behind the
You're a good man.
scenes. Thank you. I'm happy to just managing it. Carl can take all the bullets. Yeah, take all the arrows.
where did Lng go?
But you know what we'll do?
I'm happy to do it.
Finish up about 5 minutes early, and we'll just go ahead and I'll take 1 or 2 questions. Okay, let's go ahead and call. Okay. Okay, everybody, welcome back from lunch. I hope you had a restful break and had time to catch up with colleagues and friends and enjoy the afternoon. Just so you know, there's a wood burning demo is starting. I'm trying to get everybody's attention because you guys are like all looking down doing other things. But the wood burning demo, they got it on the trailer out back here, just on this side of the building where my thumb is pointing. They should be getting that up and running here by about the time we get done with our second presentation on the next break. It should be roaring and doing what we think it's going to do. So if you got time on the next break, swing out there and go visit Todd and the crew. And I'll tell you that I do have a code enforcement officer out there, so we will be above board on that. So, just kidding. Just so you guys know, in the room here, we have folks watching this on our web stream, and individual hits, it was about 60 different folks, different computers that were chiming in and out during the last morning. The most we had at one time running was about 13. So we do have people paying attention to this over the web. So if you're on the web, thank you for listening in. If you're in the crowd, I'm going to go ahead and start introducing the next speaker. So our next speaker is Dan Britton. And Dan Britton is the general manager of the Interior Gas Utility and has led Fairbanks Natural Gas, the company Fairbanks Natural Gas, and subsidiaries since the year 2000. Dan has over 28 years of experience working in varying roles within the natural gas and utility industry with specific focus on non-traditional supply solutions. Prior to moving to Alaska, Dan held multiple positions with BC Gas in Vancouver, British Columbia, including a development role in liquid natural gas and propane. page. Liquid natural gas and propane supply for locations not connected to the pipeline network. So Dan's got quite a bit of experience in natural gas. We're glad to have him on our team, getting our interior gas utility up and running, which we desperately need to get done. He's the right guy for the job. So please join me in a hearty welcome to Dan Britton. Dan, it's all yours.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here today to give an update on natural gas process here in the Fairbanks North Star Borough, and it's a good story to tell today. We've got some light finally at the end of the tunnel when additional gas supplies are going to be available for consumers to start converting to using more natural gas. And it's been a while since we actually had a definitive horizon on when that gas would be available, but today I get to share with you that good news. The Interior Gas Utility recently purchased Pentex Alaska and Fairbanks, which includes Fairbanks Natural Gas and Titan Alaska. So as we move forward, we'll begin to just refer to ourselves as the Interior Gas Utility. We're the all-inclusive utility that will provide LNG and natural gas to the Fairbanks North Star Borough. There will not be two different utilities as we move forward. So it'll be a combined utility with a single goal of providing low-cost energy to as many interior residents as possible, as quickly as possible. That's been the goal of the Interior Energy Plan for some time, and we're getting there now. What we're trying to do is stabilize the economy and improve air quality. When the project first started, the main focus wasn't necessarily on air quality, but as time has gone on and the challenges in our community have increased with air quality, it's been recognized that natural gas can be a very strong contributor to the improvement of the air quality. When people convert, we can reduce emissions. And so as we look to bring additional supplies on, we certainly look to be able to help be a solution to the air quality problem. So why should people use natural gas versus their alternatives? And well, natural gas is one of the safest and cleanest fuels available for homeowners and businesses. When compared to other fossil fuels, it emits the least amount of carbon emissions. And the EPA reports that the increased natural gas use continues to drive down air pollution. In addition to the benefits, environmental benefits, most consumers, once they begin to use natural gas, they can't believe they haven't used it in the past, and they'll never go back. The convenience associated with using natural gas compared to alternative fuels is just leaps and bounds more easier to use. It's much quieter. Your boilers are much quieter. It's cleaner. You don't have to have your boiler maintained annually. It burns cleanly. You don't have to have a buried fuel tank in your yard. The natural gas is brought to a meter adjacent to your house. You can use it for more than just your heating appliances. You have cooking, you've got your dryer, you've got your barbecue, your fireplace. You know, a lot of options and choices for appliances related to natural gas use. And so when people have it available, they really like the option. So one of the big challenges in our community has been getting an appropriate level of natural gas supply to allow for additional conversions. And recently we've taken steps to ensure that we can begin to provide firm service to customers in our community. And the first two pieces to that puzzle are the additional LNG storage in Fairbanks and additional LNG storage in North Pole. We're constructing a 5.25 million gallon tank in South Fairbanks today as we speak. The tank is well underway. I'll be able to share a little video with you today to show you some of the progress. It's a double wall, double containment design scheduled to be completed and in service by the end of 2019. And what that means for gas supply is that once that tank is in service, we can begin to add additional firm customers. So in the beginning of 2020, new customers can join the natural gas distribution network. That's regardless of any decisions that are made as it relates to LNG supply to the community. The tank itself allows us to increase the utilization of our existing LNG production assets. we can run the production 365 days a year versus how we run now, where in the off-peak season, in the summer, we shut it down for 3 or 4 days a week. So what we'll do is in the summertime, we'll fill this tank and then use it to offset our peaks in the winter. So we'll withdraw LNG from the tank in the winter and fill it again in the summer. That allows us to add about 400,000 MCF worth of sales to our system just with the tank construction project completed. And to put that in perspective, today Fairbanks Natural Gas sells about 800,000 MCF, so it's a significant increase. The goal of the project is, once we've started the conversion, is to begin to add liquefaction capacity so that we don't limit future desire to convert to gas any longer. We'll add additional liquefaction capacity to keep up with the demand as it grows. As part of the storage projects in general, we've also kicked off a storage system in North Pole. The Interior Gas Utility in 2015 installed approximately 70 miles of distribution piping in North Pole, which to date has remained under nitrogen pressure. It has not been connected to the system that's historically provided service in Fairbanks, and so it requires its own storage to be able to begin to serve customers off of that 70 miles of distribution piping. It is scheduled to be completed by the end of 2019 also. And so both facilities should be online, and we will be in a position to provide gas service to consumers in both North Pole and in Fairbanks, the beginning in 2020. Both of these facilities also, they can qualify for State of Alaska LNG storage tax credits, which one of the requirements is that they be in service by January 1st, 2020, providing commercial service. So we're very focused on the schedule for these facilities so we can make sure that they can qualify for those credits. The credits are 50% of the capital cost of the storage project, up to $15 million, and each one of these facilities should qualify for those credits. This is a few pictures of the LNG storage project. I don't know if many of you have been down Van Horn Road or the Van Horn Road extension lately, but if you have, you'll notice that we have a tank that's been going up. Again, it's 5.25 million gallons, double containment tank. What you see in the pictures is the outer wall, the gray area, that's 10-inch precast concrete panels. That is the outer wall of the tank. Inside will be a 9% nickel tank. There's a 3 feet of insulation space that's filled with perlite. And then the dome roof that you see, the white dome roof on the top. We have a significant amount of balance of plant work that goes along with this project. So increase vaporization capacity so that we can meet the demand growth of the utility moving forward. LNG pumps, boil-off gas compressors. So any of the boil-off gas associated with the storage facility, none of it is vented into the atmosphere. It's all compressed and put into our piping network and consumed by distribution customers. We reached a major milestone for this project and last week on schedule with our schedule, and that is we put the dome roof onto the tank. The reason it's so important to us is with the dome roof on now, we now have a structure for which we can use to protect us from the environment as we build the inner tank. So we can heat the inner tank. We have essentially a warehouse or a shop in which we can construct the inner tank through our winter. This is one of the ways that we could achieve the schedule necessary to get the project online and in service before January 1st, 2020. I'll share with you a short time lapse of the lift because it was quite an accomplishment. So the dome roof itself weighs about 200,000 pounds. It's being picked up, and you can see that silver ring at the forefront of the picture. That is a suspended deck ceiling that goes on top of the tank. So the dome is put on top of the suspended deck. About 2,500 cables held the deck in place during the lift, and then those cables will be used to lower the suspended ceiling onto the tank top later on in the process. I've been asked a number of times, is the orientation of the dome roof important as it relates to the outer wall? And yes, it is. There's significant structure within the dome roof for our pump columns and our vents and any piping that's going to come out of the top. So the dome roof had to be placed exactly in the correct position. It took the total time, although this is only a minute or so, it was only a couple of hours, actually, to complete this pick. We had the largest crane in Alaska, 650-ton crane for the 200,000 pound lift. So it went extremely well, and we were very pleased to get this done and completed so that we can remain on schedule before the winter hits. It's approximately a $50 million project that's being completed. The North Pole storage facility is approximately a $12 million capital investment. Oh, there we go. In North Pole, just a couple months ago, the Interior Gas Utility Board approved a early access agreement and option to purchase from Golden Valley Electric for a parcel across from the Golden Valley facilities and the former refinery. This facility at first will be designed to provide enough gas service to the phase 1 through 3 of the interior gas utility system. Phase 1 is currently completed, and ultimately there's been space left to add additional larger storage capacity and high pressure vaporization to meet any needs that Golden Valley might have in the future if they decide to convert the LM6000 to gas user. We've started discussions again with Golden Valley, and they, hopefully we can work together with synergies to benefit the project as a whole. Again, this project, we've kicked off the engineering. The engineering will be complete by end of December 2019, and we'll look to finalize contracts so that the construction will be completed in the summer of 2019 with an in-service date prior to the end of December, so that it'll meet the deadline of January 1st, 2020. So we have a lot going on, 2 large projects right now, all focused on bringing the LNG to Fairbanks so that we can begin adding customers to the systems. So as I said, that 400,000 MCF, if we want to equate that into customer count, it's approximately 2,600 residential customers is what that volume would allow us to add only. What we're looking at doing is having the capacity and the ability to be able to add approximately 1,500 to 2,000 residential and commercial customers annually once we begin in 2020. In order to get utility service, a customer will come and apply for service. The utility will install a service line from an existing main to a home where we'll have a meter. And from that point on is where the customer is really responsible for the installation. So included in the customer's need to convert will be the mechanical piping to their appliances and whatever appliances they choose to use, whether it's a replacement of a boiler, whether it's a new burner on an existing boiler, gas fireplace, barbecue, cook stove, dryer, whatever that need is. In order to keep costs down to the consumers and help with the conversion process, the utility is going to subsidize the service line cost, substantially subsidize the service line cost. So the service cost will include a $50 application fee and a $175 excess flow valve fee. What that is just a couple of years ago, the regulator, which is a DOT, Pipeline Hazardous Material Safety Group, mandated the need that all new service lines and all retrofitted service lines must have an excess flow valve installed. The idea behind the excess flow valve is if it's installed as close to the connection of the main as possible, if there's damage to the service line or damage to a customer's piping that results in increased gas flow, this valve will close, limiting the flow of gas into the damaged area and possibly preventing any emergencies related to that damage. And so these will be installed on all new commercial and residential services. So for that $50 application fee, we'll install the first 100 feet of pipe, which the majority of residential customers will fit within that. And any additional piping beyond that will incur an additional per foot cost, which will adjust over time. It's usually not a substantial cost to the homeowner or the business owner. Once we have the service line in, the customer will contract to have their work done and install their new appliances. With me today is Michelle Hollowell, sitting just in front of me. She's recently joined the Interior Gas Utility as our customer service and conversion manager, and that's really our starting point to begin to make sure we have our processes in place to streamline as much as possible the conversion process for customers. We're starting to look and getting involved in any potential grants that can be used by residential homeowners. We'll be working with mechanical contractors and mechanical suppliers to make sure they're prepared for the increase in conversions in our community and look to ways to minimize costs as much as possible to those looking to begin to use natural gas. And so we will be, in the past, there was a conversion advisory group that was put together that included mechanical contractors, public, the utilities, and others that got together to bring forward ideas of how to best go about the conversion process. We'll be reinstituting that, so we'll be looking to get that kicked off here soon. So we talked about some of the things we're working on for potential funding sources for the conversions. Recently, last year, the legislature passed on-bill financing, which allows utilities to now include financing for conversions on the utility bill. We're not sure how that's going to look yet, ultimately, depending, because we have to figure out who's ultimately responsible, the existing homeowner, a future homeowner. You know, how the utility itself, are they going to be responsible for debt? We have to go through some of the details to make sure that we pick a program that works for everyone, but we have the option now. So that was great. We've got some potential with the Alaska Housing Finance Corporation. We've got grants that are in existence today with the solid fuels change-out grant. So customers that like to change out their solid fuels, switching to natural gas qualifies within that program. And then the additional programs that the borough is working on moving forward to increase the conversion from solid fuels to less polluting or less fuels that emit less into the environment. We're also looking to the USDA to see what's available. We've heard that there's some lower cost financing and some potential grants available to rural areas. Just to give an idea of what the current coverage areas are for the two systems that exist today. We've got what's been historically the Fairbanks natural gas system, but is really just the Fairbanks area. Right now, you can see from this map that the Fairbanks core area is substantially covered by natural gas distribution system. This represents, there's about 140 miles of distribution system beginning in the South Fairbanks all the way up to College Road. Fully installed in many of the denser populated residential areas, University West, Taku Subdivision, Shannon Estates, Doyon Estates, and so there's availability. There'll be a widespread availability of gas when customers are interested in converting. That system that you just saw, it is fully gasified today. So when the storage tank comes online, there's no additional work needed to allow our first customers to begin using gas. The system installed in North Pole right now is about 70 miles of distribution piping. This is phase one, what's been identified as phase one of the North Pole system. And it's pretty much south of Hurst Road has piping network installed. So as soon as the North Pole storage facility comes online, anybody within this area can look to convert and become a consumer of natural gas. We have some helpful links if you're looking for information, a substantial amount of information available on the Interior Gas website, some information on FNG's website, and some historical Interior Energy Plan project information is on the ADA website. We'll be going through a process with IGU's website ultimately to make it as friendly as possible to those users and have as much information as possible, and so we can streamline application process. What you'll see in any one of the presentations that we give in the community in the future is the reminder to call before you dig. The security of the assets we have installed in the ground is extremely important to us as utility operators and our regulators to ensure that people aren't damaging the system. It's unsafe when you dig into a gas line, and we want to prevent that. So whether you're a contractor, a homeowner, or anytime you're digging, please call 811 before you dig. We do free locates on the utility systems. We'll come out, we'll locate the gas for you so that you can avoid damaging those facilities. So please call 811. So I think I've left enough time for a few questions.
We do. We have a little bit of time for our next presenter. So does anybody have any questions?
Yeah, Dan, what is the average cost of conversion for residential home? Can you repeat the question so that online folks can hear it?
Yeah, so John asked, what's the average cost of conversion for a residential homeowner? And so there's two levels of conversion I'll break it down into. There are boilers installed that are suitable for what I'll call a in-place conversion. So the boiler itself is designed so that you can install a natural gas burner on that boiler, and that conversion requires only the removal of the burner and the oil burner and replacement with the gas burner. It will have to ensure that that boiler is certified both for oil and gas, but that's one step that can be done. Now, if you have an older boiler that is not compatible with a switch of your burner only, you need to replace the entire boiler, then we're talking approximately $10,000 for a boiler replacement. The previous, if you're just switching your burner, it could be $1,500 to $2,500. Now, one of the benefits, though, when you do switch, not only you'll see a more stably priced, more economical energy source, you have an option to go with much higher efficiency appliances. So natural gas condensing boilers can get up to 95% plus efficiency. So you can see 8 to 10% efficiency gain in your boiler switch and your options. We do have a few boilers in our office that we have to demonstrate to people that are interested. Some of the local supply houses have provided them. And the other benefit is size. So a residential home boiler now on the natural gas side is a condensing boiler. You hang it on the wall, and it takes up much less space in your home, and as I said earlier, much quieter. So.
Okay, I see my next presenter is sitting down. Probably want to stand up and come back to the podium, Jim. We have time for a couple more questions. Let me bring the mic over to you so our listeners on the webcast can hear it. I'll get to you, and then I'll come to you.
I was just wondering, what % of the borough residents will have access to natural gas when you finish the project with the present planning?
So population percentage, I don't think I can quite answer it as far as population percentage, but as far as the structures in the borough, after the interior gas utility completes phases 1 through 3, There's still 3 more phases after that that are necessary, but the phases currently in our shorter-term financial plan, 10 years, our phases 1 through 3 plus the Fairbanks system gives us about 16,000 structures that we have access to. And in the borough, I'm trying to remember what the total structure count was. Does somebody else have that off the top of their head? I'm thinking about 40%, 30 to 40%.
Okay, next question.
Pardon? I think it was 26,000 is total structures. So.
I was wondering where you're going to get the natural gas, and I've heard them talking about trucking off the North Slope. Is that the situation now, or?
What we're pursuing right now is for additional LNG supplies is out of the Cook Inlet. The North Slope project that was evaluated was abandoned a couple of years ago, and so it was when the Cook Inlet began to have an increased availability of gas again in that market. We moved and focused on the Cook Inlet. That's where the existing facility is. It's a little closer.
Dan, can you say anything about projected price at the house yet?
Yeah, I should have brought you our latest pro forma, and I apologize for not doing so. I'll include that in my next presentation. But our projected pricing is somewhere in the next number of years in the $18 range per million BTUs or per 1,000 cubic foot. Our price today to a residential homeowner is just over $20 per 1,000 cubic feet, and puts us about 10% below the cost of heating oil today.
Okay, we have a couple more minutes. Anybody else have a question for Dan while you got him? He's captive. One question.
So in the construction of your tanks, is there any fuel-fired equipment that you are getting air permitting for?
So we're doing our emission unit analysis as we speak for that facility to determine air permit requirements. The fuel burning appliances we will have is boilers to provide heat source to our vaporizers. And that's substantial, and then some minor heaters for building heat structures. But the boilers are the main fuel consuming appliances on that site. And they're natural gas boilers.
Thank you.
We have another question.
So are you say cost for residential customers. Do you look to see that there will be a tiered price for commercial?
Historically, we've had a tiered price for commercial. Commercial customers' volumetric rate has been slightly lower than residential. Their monthly service charge has been higher. We have yet to bring forward to the Interior Gas Utility Board of Directors a cost of service study and for them to decide what they want the rate structure to be. So until we do so, I can't say what will happen in the future, whether it'll be a single price to all or whether we will have a tiered structure, but historically we have had and it's not big difference pricing wise, but it is a little bit.
Okay, another question.
Mine isn't so much a question as just a bit of perspective. I did a lot of research on all of the other areas that are under EPA sanctions for air quality, and all of them had much, much lower costs of living and heating and all of that stuff, with natural gas coming in at 13,000 MFCs. I don't really know what that number is, but we've got 13 in one community, with 13 in another community, with nine in one community. So I just wanted to sort of throw that out there, that when we're comparing what costs of heating in other communities that are under EPA restrictions, that we keep in mind that even when we're getting natural gas, it is at a significantly higher cost than other communities are paying to switch over from wood heat to natural gas heat. So not a question, just a little bit of information.
I just want to make sure I understood you had sufficient storage capacity. You said you could do up to 1,500 to 2,000 conversions a year. So by 2023, which would be 4 years, do you have sufficient storage capacity to add 8,000 homes?
We do. The storage, as we've projected our demand growth, the storage that we're constructing today will never drop us below the 5 days of storage requirement that we have in the community. We actually maintain much more than that. So how much storage we have during a peak winter day is a combination of LNG production capacity versus storage. So the idea is to have the production capacity come online with the increased demand so that we can match our demand with production for the most part and have the storage provide this additional security of supply.
We have one road that seems to be critical to this supply, and it goes through a major earthquake zone. What discussion has there been for if there is a major earthquake that interferes with the road that comes around Anchorage up to Fairbanks?
So we do have an alternative route. We can come around the Glen Highway and take the Richardson. So we have done so in the past. We had an avalanche once where the road was shut down for a 24-hour period. The Parks Highway was shut down, and we can take the alternative route in the event of an emergency. As one of the other reasons we maintain the days of supply in Fairbanks is to ensure that if we do have any temporary disruptions that we have on site the stored LNG so that we can make it through those issues. South of Anchorage. Which road where you can, our LNG facility is in Point McKenzie near, yeah, yeah. So if we are getting supply from Kenai at some point, then that could be a potential issue that we have to consider. But, yeah.
Okay, I'm not seeing any additional questions. Dan, thank you for your time today.
Thank you.
And again, these slides will be posted on the website. And we're going to take about 30 seconds here and get our next presenter up and going. So just hang in there.
Oops, excuse me.
Intro you properly, Mr. Dodson.
Just tell me what.
Just step aside for a second.
Oh, so I have that up there. That's good.
Yeah, I got your slides. So
Okay, cool.
just to flip your slides, you'll just hit that button right there. It's not real sophisticated. Come on there. There we go. Okay, let me intro you real quick.
Hi, honey. Good. How you doing? All right.
Okay, we're about 10 minutes ahead of schedule, and that's just fine. So we have Mr. Dodson from Fairbanks, Jim Dodson from the Fairbanks Economic Development Corporation. Let me do a quick intro on him. So Jim has been the president CEO of the Fairbanks Economic Development Corporation since 2005. Jim is a lifelong Fairbanks resident. He and his wife Kathy have raised 4 children and have 5 grandchildren. Jim served in the U.S. Army Vietnam 5th Special Forces Group and is a University of Alaska graduate. He serves on numerous local, state, and national businesses and nonprofit advisory boards. He currently serves on the Civilian Advisory Board for the Alaska Military Commander, Air Force Lieutenant General Thomas Bashir, the State of Alaska Aviation Advisory Board, and is a member of the Greater Fairbanks Chamber of Commerce Board of Directors. Jim's work at FEDC has been instrumental in supporting developing new industry in the Fairbanks, North Star Borough, and the state of Alaska. He is a tireless supporter of energy programs and new jobs for not just Alaska, but for Fairbanks. So please join me in a warm welcome for Jim Dodson. It's all yours.
Thank you. Appreciate the opportunity to come. I've been asked to talk about the economic impact of air quality. FEDC has been a long supporter of cleaning up the Fairbanks air. Obviously, my interest is economic. My job is economics. But there's a lot better reasons to clean up our air. You heard them this morning. I was here for a while. There's a lot of good reasons to clean up the air other than our pocketbooks. But some of us need a little additional encouragement. What I'm going to try to draw for you is a connection between our economy and the air quality. Like much of the information you heard this morning, the connection is not necessarily direct. It's this may happen or this may not happen. But I think that I can draw a conclusion for you that'll lead you to believe that it's going to be in our economic best interest to clean up our air. I heard Jim tell the group that was setting up here just before I had to leave, we had a board meeting today, asked them a question. He asked, can you tell the audience why we ought to clean up the air and how it relates to your presentation? If we don't clean up the Fairbanks air, we will all be making less money and we'll be paying higher cost of living. Let me tell you why I believe that. For one thing, it's been the motto of Fairbanks economic development for a long time. This is our community. It is our economy. It is our responsibility. Some of you may know that we helped save Eielson during the 2005 BRAC. At that time, when the military decided to put Eielson on the BRAC list, we were told by the governor, Senator Stevens and others that this is a done deal. There's nothing we can do about it. But after putting a group together that included the governor, Senator Murkowski, Ted Stevens, many Alaska legislative leaders, and many local community leaders, we were able to convince the Air Force, and particularly the BRAC Commission, that Eielson was a good investment. It was the right place to be, and it should not be closed. We did that again in 2014 when the Air Force decided to move the aggressors, the F-16s, to J-Bear and turn Eielson from a 24/7, 365 operation into 8-hour-a-day, 5-day-a-week operation, tearing down 17 buildings. The Deputy Chief of Staff of the Air Force told me when that proposal was made, he said, Jim, if you let the Air Force tear down those 17 buildings, you will never have another mission at Eielson Air Force Base. Today, that's all in our rearview mirror. We have $565 million worth of construction going on at Eielson Air Force today. By the third quarter of 2020, we'll get the first of 54 F-35s and 1,765 airmen moving to Eielson to become a new mission. The F-35, the 5th generation fighter representing the Asia-Pacific theater. A huge responsibility based at probably the most strategic base in the world, Eielson Air Force Base. It was the most strategic base in the world when Billy Mitchell named it many years ago. It was in 2005, it was in 2014, but sometimes people need convincing that Fairbanks is the right place to be. So I'm going to talk to you today about our baseline economy. I'm not going to try to give you a complete picture of the economy. I'm going to try to give you a snapshot of what drives our economy. People often tell me that we are independent. We are Alaskans. We are independent. We do not depend on anybody. I'm often marveled at that statement because when I look at these economic numbers, and I'm going to show you in a minute, I don't really see where we're independent of anybody. We're pretty dependent. Our problem is we're terribly under-diversified. We don't have a lot of options when it comes to where we get our paycheck. And where we get our paycheck really not necessarily from the military, but maybe from a contractor that works for the military, or maybe from the school district that has military kids in their school. So let me go and show you what I mean. This is where the personal income comes from. These sectors is where it comes from into Fairbanks. Federal government is 50% of it. 30% of that is military. State and local government is another 18% of it. The petroleum industry, 2%, and everything else, 30%. So everything else includes those things that we know about: tourism, mining, support industry, restaurants, construction industry, all of that stuff. But probably most of you know communities over generations that have lost 20% of their economy typically fail, financially fail completely. So we're not really independent of anybody. We have 50% of our revenue coming from federal government and another 20% coming from state and local government. And I think most of you know that most of that is dollars going to Juneau, from the North Slope to Juneau, and from Juneau back to the community. Jobs. Who creates our jobs? 45% of it, federal government. 17% of it, state and local government. And 36% everything else. We are terribly under-diversified. I've been asked why FEDC pays so much attention to the military. I am a huge believer in diversified economy. I would like nothing better to see us have 10 different sources of revenue and have no greater than 10% in any one sector. That's simply not a reality in Alaska. We do not have a diversified economy. We can get there, but we haven't done much work since 1980 when they built the pipeline. We need to go back to the focus of diversifying our economy. So today, what we work on is those things are possible. And because Alaska, and particularly Eielson Air Force Base and Fort Wainwright, are in one of the most strategic places in the world, military is high on our support list. One of the things that is kind of interesting, there was an article in the ADN Alaska Dispatch, it was about 3 weeks ago. It's written by an economist with ICER. He talked about the disposable income of people in Alaska before the pipeline and after the pipeline. And of course, different cost of living, and we're not talking about direct dollars because those are a lot of years ago. You're talking about, you know, $1980 as opposed to $2018. So the dollar in a list of Alaska cities, we're 18th. 2010, we were 16th. We're not necessarily moving in the right direction. And that's not necessarily good. I heard somebody talking about the cost of energy. Cost of energy is an interesting issue in Alaska. Last week I was out and about, was up in Bettles, happened to need to buy some aviation gas, and I paid $9 a gallon for it. Villages along the Koyukuk and along the Kobuk and the Yukon are paying $9 a gallon for diesel fuel. They're paying, in some cases, $1 a kilowatt hour for electricity. So, you know, one of the projects we worked on is a project you just heard about, the Interior Energy Project. We spent a lot of time on it. Started with a concept that we talk about as energy for all Alaska. And it's under, you know, it generated from an opinion within the FEDC board and staff that in order to diversify Alaska's economy, we need affordable energy. You got to have affordable energy to diversify our economy. And you know, a great example is a mine that's in the process, the final process of approval by EPA is Donlin Creek down in the Kuskokwim. Donlin Creek is not talking about building a road to Donlin Creek. They're talking about building a gas pipeline to Donlin Creek because energy is such an important part of development. This is the cost of living of 3 different cities in Alaska. And you can see that Fairbanks and Anchorage are pretty close. You know, the average U.S. city is 100%. Anchorage is 128%. Fairbanks is 130%. But move over to the utility line. Anchorage is 121%. Fairbanks is 207. So what's the deal? We pay 22 cents a kilowatt hour for our electricity. Is that right, John? 22 cents? Yeah. And we're paying, I don't know what the price of diesel fuel, heating fuel is today, $3.20? Is that a reasonable no? $3? $3.03 delivered. But it wasn't very many years ago we were paying $4. And if we could get our heads together and figure out what's going to happen to the price of crude, you know, we could all retire. So we won't worry about trying to do that. We can't figure that out. When we started working on the Interior Energy Project to you know, kind of address this young lady's question, we projected the cost delivered to Fairbanks, delivered to the customer, would be $15. And now it's $18. But one of the things that's interesting, and I've thought about this a lot, when you go through and you conceptualize a project and you work up a hypothesis about it and put together some estimates, you're thinking of the project as complete. You're not thinking of it as, you know, starting out with 8,000 customers and then 3 years later going to 12 and 3 years later going to 16. We were thinking of it having 26,000 customers. And so the economies of scale got us to 15. We didn't go through the growth spurts. And from my perspective, one of the reasons that we brought together the interior energy issue was because of the price of fuel. But we believe very strongly that it'll contribute favorably to our air quality issue. Air quality needs to be solved. So why? Well, air quality not only affects your health, it affects my health, and more importantly, it affects my grandchildren's health. It affects your pocketbook. It impacts your pocketbook. I can visualize a day, no, actually, I said that wrong. I have nightmares about the day when somebody in Congress stands up on the floor of Congress and says, we cannot send the young men and women of the United States military to Fairbanks, Alaska, and have them breathe the worst quality air in the nation. You know, today, the military is all volunteer service. Quality of life is a key issue. You will not hear any service commander, any secretary, whether it's the Secretary of the Navy, the Secretary of the Army, Air Force, or Marines, talk about their service unless they talk about quality of life, schools, housing, air quality. That is quality of life. People will not want to come to our community if they have to breathe bad air. They definitely will not want to bring their children to our community if they have to breathe bad air. I called Fort Wainwright yesterday to confirm this because I was told this about a year ago, but I wanted to make sure I was giving you current and accurate information. I had heard, I was told a year ago that Fort Wainwright was put in a no-growth status and a slowdown in training cycles status until we can get our air quality addressed. And since Fort Wainwright is within the non-attainment area, that is still true today. They are in a no-growth status, and they are slowing down their training. So you think of the troops that are in Alaska. They answer to the Pacific Commander based out of Hickam in Hawaii. They not only have that responsibility, they have a responsibility to NORTHCOM that addresses whatever threat we have coming from the north. I don't know how many of you have read this. I happen to do a lot of reading on military stuff. Russia, in the last 2 years, has rebuilt 6 Cold War bases on the north coast of Russia, facing Alaska. So they're making not only a power claim, but they're making an economic claim, of course, to the emerging Arctic issues, the thawing of the ocean up there, the ability to ships to transit. But that has created a threat of sorts, and I don't know. I'm really not suggesting that there's a threat of Russians coming across the frozen ocean and coming to Alaska, but certainly the United States is looking to address that. Let's not let the men and women stationed at Fort Wainwright be moved to J-Bear. We need them in Fairbanks, and in order to keep them in Fairbanks, we need to clean up our air. Tourism, another issue. I'm sure that most of you that live in town last winter, as you drove around town, noticed a lot of winter tourism. It's a growing market. About half of them had face masks on, surgical face masks, to address our air quality issue. let's make our community a place that people want to come and understand and experience the pristine air and the qualities that we enjoy in Alaska. Healthcare, I'm not going to talk about healthcare. People here are much more qualified than I am, but I can tell you it is hitting your pocketbook. Your insurance costs are higher because of air quality impacting healthcare. Energy costs. If we don't address this issue, if we don't find a way ourselves to clean this up, others will do it for us. EPA is already talking about requiring our power plants to put in additional emission controls on their stacks, costing them millions of dollars. They can't pay for that and stay in business. We are the ones that will pay for that. 22 cents a quick kilowatt hour will be a bargain. It'll be a bargain, and remember, we are paying twice as much as Anchorage is paying for their energy costs. Population decline. It has to be obvious to all of us that poor air quality will drive our population down. As it drives our population down, our infrastructure at Golden Valley and the Fairbanks North Star Borough won't go away. The few of us that remain will be the ones paying for it. Our taxes, our costs will be higher. Loss of federal funds. Between now and 2020, we have a significant possibility of losing over $300 million in federal highway funds. EPA doesn't have solutions. They have sanctions. They're not coming to you with solutions. We're the ones that need to come with solutions. They will come to you with sanctions. And loss of highway funds will be one of them. So I'll say it to you again. This is our community. It is our economy, and it is our responsibility. Let's take that responsibility and make this a place that we want to live, that everybody wants to visit, and that we are collectively proud of. So guess what? I'm going to give you guys a break. I'm going to let you go early. No. Any questions?
Thank you, Jim. So real quick before we start questions, Glenn, are we on track with the burn demo? We are on track. So let's do some questions, and we'll go from there. Anybody got a question for Mr. Dodson? Crickets. Come on, Kathleen. You got to have a question.
I was so amazing, I convinced everybody. Come on.
Here we go. Here we go. We got our icebreaker question. Let me get over there real quick. So the reason why we're using the microphone, Jim, is because there's folks listening on the web stream and want to make sure they get the questions.
Yeah, thank you, Jim. So the 1,700 airmen and family members that are coming, can you talk about where we expect those folks to live, and will that be within the non-attainment area or outside? Thanks.
So except for essential personnel like, F-35 pilots, maybe the commander of the Air Force or any service today doesn't tell the military where to live. One of the things, though, with Eielson, with this particular stationing, the Fairbanks North Star Borough did a study. It's called a growth management plan. What it showed is that out of the 1,700 and some troops, plus family members, plus civilian contractors, which come up to about 3,000 additional personnel and family members and civilian personnel, and another 2,000 induced. So, you know, maybe a total population increase of about 5 grand. That they will not have housing for about 930 people. The growth management plan kind of went through those numbers and looked at them and kind of took our vacancy rate and plus what we build on the average each year, and said that the community will need to step up and build about 400 new residents to accommodate the 930 requirement. There's a couple issues about that. One is, this is really a good deal for Fairbanks. If you think about Eielson Air Force Base compared to Fort Wainwright, Eielson has been somewhat of a closed base. Airmen, well, actually the same study showed that 60% of the personnel, the military personnel stationed at Eielson, don't interact with the community. So if they don't interact with the community, they're not spending money in your community. But if they live off the community, they will be interacting with your community. They will be spending money. So, you know, the ideal thing, if you're going to take advantage of an economic opportunity like this, is to find ways, you know, to bring those dollars off the base and have them spent in your community. But, you know, from my perspective, where they will live is everywhere. They won't be able to, you know, their preferred location is in North Pole, 99705 area, North Pole and Salcha, but they won't be able to find enough housing in that area. So what you'll see is they'll be, you know, all dispersed all over Fairbanks. And I think probably over the next 10 years that'll change as housing kind of grows to meet the demand. But you know, certainly for a while it'll be wherever.
So Jim, I'm going to ask a question or maybe make a statement, just because I know you know the answer and I know the answer. I'd like you to brief the crowd here. So it's no mystery that the military and payroll receipts coming from the military and the federal government, it's pretty much our golden goose in Fairbanks right now. Can you kind of explain to the audience what the EIS basing process is like? So if the military decided they wanted to expand Eielson or expand Fort Wainwright military operations out there, what would that look like, and how does this air quality problem fold into that decision-making process?
So, you know, what good thing, Eielson's outside of the non-attainment area. Bad thing, Wainwright's inside of it. But, you know, let's say that in order to support the mission, you know, to support the mission at Fort Wainwright, the military decides they need, you know, 20 new Apaches and everything that comes with it. So they would have to go through an EIS process looking at all the issues. And of course, you know, the 900-pound gorilla in our closet is air quality. And that would simply stop it. It wouldn't go any farther. You wouldn't get 900, I mean, you wouldn't get 20 new Apaches. And then you get back to, if the military has decided to support the mission, they need 20 new Apaches, then the mission can't be supported at Fort Wainwright. And if the mission can't be supported at Fort Wainwright, the long-term objectives would have to be to move the mission. Okay. You guys, it looks like you guys need a break. Have a great day.
Thanks, Jim. Okay. Let me wrap this up.
About 10 to 15 minutes before we send them out.
Okay. So we are way ahead of schedule. So in about 10, maybe 15 minutes, it sounds like we'll be ready for the full up, no bars, no hold bars, wood burning demo. So if you want to take a quick break and then maybe wander out there, we're going to get back on track here at 3 o'clock. So we have quite a substantial break coming at us. So enjoy your time.
So how do I do this? Just unplug this? No, because, okay. No. You're still gonna be 3 o'clock.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. And Jim, how did you do this? You just unplugged this?
I talked to you at the fairground.
Okay, I think that's what he did. Okay, yeah.
I'm not here.
Okay, because I need to get on here for a minute.